Hey, how's it going? My name is Luis Estrada, and today I'm just gonna do my video presentation for my research project. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start. So just a quick little statistical data before we actually jump into the actual project itself. But on average, 2% of the population, 2%, yeah, 2% of the United States population is youth that are currently involved in gangs. So in other words, statistically speaking, about 6.5 million of the population in the United States as of today are gang members, and that's according to the census.gov website. Adding on to that, according to Sam Houston State University, the age group between these gang members, youth gang members, range from as little as 5 years old all the way up to 17 years of age, with the highest percent of that age group that has the highest percentage of gang members is at the age of 14 years old. So when we think of gangs, we think of the terms violence, crimes, drugs, and death, and this is a huge issue, especially for the youth of today. So you start thinking, well, how do gangs influence, how do the gangs influence the youth of today? Well, according to research done by the OJJDP in 3 different cities, the levels of the influence of gangs on youth members is several times higher when compared to the influence by other delinquents. So in other words, those who are in gangs have a higher influence rate over any other type of a criminal on the youth of today. With an increase of gang membership, we see an increase of increased violence, and as a matter of fact, this is starting to become an epidemic. And according to a study done back in 2006, youth violence on average costs the United States $158 billion per year. That's a lot of money, and that's back in 2006, so I can't imagine what it is 10 years later or 11 years later in this instance. So back in 1998, Donan and Sigelman, I'm pretty positive I may have mispronounced those wrong, so I do apologize about that. They proposed a statement. They said that if we can take 6% of the worst delinquents and reduce their crimes by 20%, we can shift our focus as a community, as the criminal justice system, away from implementing prison sentences to youth prevention programs or violence prevention programs. Which personally, I think that's a great idea. But the question is, why prevention programs? What's the effect of them? Well, first and foremost, prevention programs identify risk factors. It identifies gang membership or drug abuse or physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, all the different type of risk factors that are causing the youth today to go down those violent paths or the gang membership paths. Secondly, they provide a course of action to these youth. Once they determine the risk factors, they can provide, all right, these are the type of alternatives we have, the type of resources that we can provide for you, the different routes we can take to help with the youth. And lastly, in order for them to be effective, they have to cater to that specific age group. So in other words, something that was effective back when on a 5-year-old is not going to be as effective as it is on somebody who's 14, 15-year-old. So, as I'm starting to just research the different programs, I encountered a program called the Striving to Reduce Youth Violence Everywhere, also known as STRIVE, and this program really did pique my attention. So as I'm thinking there, I started thinking, and that's how I came with my research question, which in this case it's going to be, since its induction, has STRIVE been effective in reducing gang membership? So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump straight on in. So a little bit of information about STRIVE itself. It was founded by the Centers for Disease Control Prevention, and as of today, it's still under their guidance. And their main goal is to help communities prevent youth violence. And by doing so, they work to provide safer environments for these youth, whether that be um, violence-free families, whether it's safer work environment, school environments, overall safer community. That's their main goal. And three ways that Strive does that, or three ways that they realize that vision, is by first and foremost they increase public health leadership. So in other words, they get together with various different organizations, different representative of those organizations, um, to try to come in and act as leaders you know for those individuals, and it can be anything from a police officer to a teacher to public health official. They reach out and they collaborate with all those different individuals to try to provide that leadership uh, role for those youth. Secondly, they promote widespread adoption of the youth prevention program, and their strategies. And lastly, they reduce rates of youth violence on a national scale. This is another reason why I specifically chose them, is because they're more known nationally on a national scale, which is always great because when you have a bigger company, you can have more accurate readings. Or in my opinion, you can have more accurate readings and accurate data compared to smaller organizations. So Strive in itself is a strong program, but one of the greatest assets that they have is this little subdivision, sub-organization that they created that's called the Strive Action Council, and this was founded back in 2010. And basically what the Strive Council is, it's comprised of various multi-sector organizations. So this kind of goes back to a couple minutes ago when I was talking about how they reach out to different leaders of different organizations. Well, this is what they're referring to. Those several multi-sector organizations can include public health officials, law enforcement, education, doctors. They collaborate with all those different organizations to be able to provide a more effective and more resources to these youth. So some of the accomplishments Strive has is that they have represented over 1,000 affiliate organizations, which again goes back to a couple minutes ago, the whole entire reaching out to different organizations and collaborating with them. So it's really cool fact that they're working, and they have worked with over 1,000 plus organizations. Second, their council members have offered over 50 trainings, which 50 trainings doesn't seem as much, but when you're thinking on a national scale, that's fairly hefty. And lastly, they have published over 30 new resources that relate to the specific topics, such as youth violence prevention. So that in itself is amazing, because that means that the information that they are collaborating, that they're getting from various organizations, they're putting it into resources and making it available to everybody out there. Now, how does it work? Well, Strive itself, if you're a parent, for example, that has a troubled youth that's involved in drugs and gangs, and you want to be able to help them, well, you go to the website, Strive website, and you sign up. And you sign up for by signing up, you get additional tools and access to all these different tools and resources that you may not get by not being signed up for it. Secondly, you're gonna go ahead and start an activity planning tool, and this pretty much, you're just gonna go in, you're gonna start typing in the different criteria, whether if it's, again, my child is involved in drugs, there's violent sexual abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse, they're involved in gang membership, gang activity. You're gonna just start clicking all those different options, and as you're doing that, the Strive website itself is starting to funnel. It's trying to take all those different categories and start funneling all these different tools and resources that they have. So by the end of all that, it's gonna go ahead and give you a list of different resources and different tools and different strategies that you can implement. And the next step is implementing those steps. And as you're implementing them, you're gonna be logging back into the website and giving them consistent updates, which it shows you pretty much a map per se. You have point A and point Z, and you get to see the progression from that, which is a very neat thing. And once your program completion is done, you're pretty much done, and you'll see the results from there. So the overall question that came to my mind is, does that work? I mean, because you're you're relying pretty much on Strive to get you these resources and ultimately you to implement them. Well, statistically speaking, it does work. As a matter of fact, in 2011, Oakland, California has seen a 40% reduction in this specific topic, in youth violence reduction, because of programs such as Strive. However, though, Strive itself is not a program that is 100% effective by itself. So when you start, when you start combining it with other programs such as the Gang Resistance Education and Training prevention program, you start getting better results. Well, hopefully better results, but you start getting more access to more tools and more resources that weren't available with, let's say, the Strive program, but it is now with this other program. And as a matter of fact, studies have shown that over a 4-year post completion program, we have seen a 39% reduction in gang membership thanks to programs such as Strive and GREAT. This is compared to a 24% reduction of gang membership in areas that did not implement such programs. So to answer the question, does it work? Does Strive actually work, and has it been effective in reducing gang membership? Yes. However, I want to add to that. Strive has been effective, but you do not want to have it as your only foolproof plan. You want to be able to expand on that. You want to be able to have Strive and combine it with other different prevention programs. That way you can go ahead and open your database of and your accessibility to different resources and different tools that Strive may not have, that this other organization may have. But again, to answer the question, has it been effective in reducing gang membership? Yes, it has. With that being said, this concludes my presentation, and I want to say thank you again for your time, and thank you for this wonderful semester, and I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. Thank you.